Can I use AI to give me a prediction about where stocks will be in the next 6 months? We're going to find out. So let's get started. We're going to be using Python for this project, and we're going to also be using ChatGPT to help give us guidelines on how we can actually accomplish something like predicting stock prices in the future. When working with ChatGPT or any other LLM, we need to make sure that our prompting is on point. So we want to make sure it's concise and it is very, very specific to what we want. We're also going to be putting some guidelines on this. I want to use a specific API called AlphaVantage for our stock endpoints, and then we want to use Profit as well for the future. It's a great open source engine created by Facebook. It essentially allows us to take past data, and with that we can then predict future data, which now I think about it might be somewhere I've heard that before. Doesn't matter. Let's start by importing our libraries into our Python script. For this first iteration, we're just going to be taking a single guess on a single stock. So we're going to take a single stock quote and we're going to try to guess the next 6 months from the past 5 years of data. Now that we have all of our libraries imported, we're going to go ahead and check ChatGPT for our outline, and we can begin importing the data from our API. This is going to be from AlphaVantage. You can utilize this for free. It's 25 calls a day. I went ahead and paid for this so I could make this video and make a ton of calls, but it is free if you want to follow along. We can see we have our data downloading, and now we can go ahead and run it through the Profit engine, which is just a few lines of code, really simple to do, and it will train the engine and then make the guess. However, I don't want to just look at text. I want it to be visual. So let's get back to ChatGPT and ask it to make it visual. Once it outputs that code, it's telling us to use Matplotlib, which seems like a great option, really easy to utilize. So we're going to go ahead and take those, throw it into our script, run it again, and take a look at our graph. We went ahead and went with NVIDIA on this, and it is showing the climb over time. And you can see that we have is a prediction into the future, which is right here. These are the actual plots. This is what it's predicting. It's predicting a little up and down for the next 3 months or so, and then it's going to move onwards by going up. So a very interesting prediction. You can see that it's kind of running off of this model where it goes up and down and up and down, and it's re-predicting that it's going to continue this sort of linear trend upwards. Running through the code here, what we have is essentially we have the ticker that we're going to be grabbing right here. We're going to then grab off the raw data that has been downloaded. We want to use the adjusted close parameter. So we want to get the daily adjusted and use the adjusted close. This will help mitigate stock splits, because if a stock split comes in on a raw price, it's going to make it look like it went really far down, because the stock will suddenly go into 1/4, 1/10, 1/20 of its price. So we want to make sure that we're using the adjusted close, which will fix that. We then run it through a couple of indexing things and then cut off for our years of data. The model is then fit to our data set up here. Down here, it is the actual forecasting portion of this. Forecast, model, predict into the future, and then this is just all of the MATLAB stuff to actually print out this graph right here. And this is machine learning. You're essentially taking a subset of data, you're putting it into a machine, it learns patterns from that, and then it tries to predict the future. But this seems a little bit on the naive side. Let's go ahead and make this smarter. We're gonna enhance this by adding in different engines that will all interpret the data in different ways. To do this, we're gonna be incorporating Profit, LSTM, XGBoost, and SVR. These are all machine learning algorithms that do wildly different things to try to create the same predictive model. With just a little bit of work, we can actually get this running. And by a little bit of work, I mean a lot of back and forth between AI asking and debugging. It took a while to actually get this to work properly and to get this code outputted. But here it is. It is in its nice raw form here, where we're essentially creating a whole bunch of models here, and then we're running them through different engines. So we are grabbing our original data set, then we're converting them into different sets that all of the engines can read. We're then taking those sets and we are pushing them in through each model, getting back their predictions, and then combining them all into a single graph. You can see this is a lot more code because it's a lot more complex, and we have to associate the data to many different engines. But at the end of the day, we create, after all of this learning step, we create a bunch of different ideas here. We need a little bit more tuning to help fix these at the bottom here, but what we get out of this is we are able to get an average from every one of these and then create an ensemble, which is this one. This is all of them together weighted, and we can then get a stock price at the end in average. So the last historical is 497. Profit says it'll be 698. LSTM says it'll be 541. These two say it's actually going down, and we can get the ensemble price at it. We think that by the end it'll be 476, which is actually a slight decline from its historical price. Interesting. Now, I said this video was going to tell me which stock to buy, so I need to make this smarter. I need to have it loop through the S&P 50, the top 50 stocks in the United States, and I want it to tell me what is going to be going up in the next 6 months. So to do that, we're going to be simply taking this algorithm, making it into a loop, running it through each one, coming up with an average, and then sorting that from top to bottom. And then we'll see the percentage change at the top and the percentage change at the bottom. We'll have the best and the worst stock, and maybe we'll become millionaires in the process. So to do this, we need to get back into our AI and start asking it to do a lot more for us. So I'm prompting it over and over to fix bugs and to enhance it to make it work the way that I want it to work. This will take a while to run after it finally gets going, but once we got it, we have ourselves a nice new pattern here. We're essentially creating a class that will predict each stock individually, that will make sure it runs through all of the models. We return that data, and then we sort it at the very end so that we can see which ones run the best. You can see that it is rewritten a lot of the code, but it's copied a lot of it as well. We have some memory cleanup partitions here to make it sure that we run a little bit quicker. But at the end of the day, it is a lot of that single code just repeated into a loop. We're essentially taking all of the tickers, which are up here, this S&P 550 tickers, which we just asked ChatGPT to print us out so we didn't have to look it up ourselves. We then run through each of them, analyze them, and then append them. And then after that, clean up the memory so we can restart another iteration. Like I said, this took about 40 minutes to run. But at the end of the day, what we have here is our 6-month returns for the S&P stocks. We can see what each of them predicted. These are formatted wrong. Current price should be in dollars, not percentages, but that's okay. Profits, of course, for some reason, the most optimistic of all of these models. The rest of them are a little more realistic, but our ensemble kind of takes an average of all of these together, and we get basically our percentages. So United Healthcare, Walmart, and Costco seem to be the top contenders in our little model here. And the worst are Nike, AMD, Merck & Co, and Intel, looking like we're getting -12, 13, and 14% respectively. So with this, we have our predictions. Is this accurate? Probably not even close. It is hard to predict the future with things like stocks because there's so many other areas that go into it. Sentiment, world events, black swans, all of those ideas come together to create a stock price and an overall market. Overall, this is a Python project that you can get started with really, really fast and have a lot of fun with, especially with the help of LLM engines like ChatGPT. And of course, none of that was investing advice because this algorithm is not going to be correct. Thank you everyone for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next video.